Me sharing is about me being vulnerable. Right? Am I able to do that? Am I willing to do that? Am I willing? And I would say this is where we go back to that initial thing you said at the beginning. Am I willing to experience that chest-altering tightness and discomfort that we feel when we're like, okay, I'm gonna
temperature rising.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and I'm not sure how they're gonna respond to it.
Rackdale.
We are.
And we are not drinking water.
No.
Well, we are. Sparkling.
It is. It's a type of water.
Type of water. Sweetened slightly.
Liquid death.
Liquid Death. That's right. Quick backstory on Liquid Death. So did you know this was created particularly for men? Because most of the sparkling waters out there have more of a feminine design.
Yeah.
Like you look at like Bubbly and
Yeah,
LaCroix.
Yeah.
So the founder of Liquid Death was intentional in making this look kind of like, I don't know, how do you describe this? Vibe. What's the vibe?
Slightly more intense in nature.
Yeah. And it was supposed to blend into, like the party vibe. Like it looks like beer.
Yeah.
But it's a sparkling water.
Yeah.
So make people feel, I guess, cooler drinking water
It was genius.
Genius, yeah.
Honestly, it was genius.
Yeah.
Like people love this stuff.
Yeah, and it's delicious.
Oh, it is good. It's super good.
Yeah, it's like sweet and like I can't do the LaCroix and it's just not sweet enough. So
I love LaCroix.
You do?
But yeah, I do. I do. I really enjoy LaCroix. My favorite is Spindrift.
Spindrift is all right.
I really like Spindrift. I like LaCroix a lot. But Liquid, I mean, I think this is better.
Yeah.
I mean,
it does have.
I would prefer this.
Double the sugar of Spindrift, so.
Oh man,
a whole agave syrup, yeah.
A whole
4 grams. I think.
Oh, 4 grams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, what are we talking about today?
What do you want to talk about?
So this was a suggested topic. Not
well, maybe before we get there.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, tell me.
I think there's something I really need to tell you, David. That's been bothering me.
Ooh.
It's been bothering me.
All right, tell me more.
And I want to take an opportunity to be vulnerable and actually tell you this.
Wow.
And it's because I recognize that I have a hard time with certain things that you do, like specifically how you pour your drink into your cup.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
That's a me thing. I recognize that. I recognize that.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me more about that.
But okay.
Yeah. What is it?
I don't know. I think maybe it's a preservation thing that I have. Like I'm like, man, let's preserve as much of that drink as we can. And so when I see at times you pour it like straight up and down, I'm like, oh, I'm crying inside because all of that fizz and delicious liquid is disappearing. But again, this is a me thing. And I'm trying to take an opportunity to recognize that, but also say it because I don't want it to build resentment. Because you know what they say about resentment.
What did they say about resentment?
It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So you just really had to get it off your chest.
I felt like it was necessary because I felt like I could say it and you could receive it.
Yeah. I do receive it.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you sharing that it bothers you, but I don't know if I'm going to change how I pour my drink.
That's okay.
But I'll be mindful. Let's say that. Okay. I'll be more mindful of pouring my drink when you're not around.
Well, and
so it doesn't bother you.
You know what? I think having just said it, I think I could probably watch you pour your drink that way now and it'd be okay.
Wow. Why is that? Because what about saying it helped?
I think saying it, like actually saying something about it, it in a way has this strange element of power around it, like some intense type of awkward feeling.
Right? Yes.
That we might define as a really, really significant high-tech word called angst.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
But now that I've said it,
It's.
I feel better.
You feel better.
I feel better.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I'm happy, man.
So we're
That's
talking
great.
about hard conversations.
Yeah, and we just had one right there. Congrats, man.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while.
I don't think I've heard that one before.
I think I heard it first off of a golf movie called The Legend of Bagger Vance. Fantastic movie if you
Okay,
haven't seen
I
it,
thought
by
you
the
were
way.
gonna say Happy Gilmore, but
No. Also another great movie, but
yeah,
no, Legend of Bagger Vance is a fantastic movie.
never watched it.
I can't remember if I brought it up in the first episode or not. It's a great movie though. Even if you don't like golf, go watch it.
Okay, Legend of Bagger Vance.
The Legend of Bagger Vance, yeah.
All right,
Great
I'll
film.
do it. I'll do it. By the way, Happy Gilmore 2 is coming out. I saw
Oh,
the trailer. It didn't look too exciting, but
no, but
yeah.
no pun intended.
But Dale, I feel like that was a pretty awesome confrontation you just did right there.
Okay, I appreciate
Yeah,
that. Thank
yeah.
you.
And what's funny is that because I am super conflict avoidant, and so even as you were bringing it up, I was like, man, what is he gonna bring up?
I could see the wheels turning.
Yeah, I could feel the temperature rising in my body, because that's what happens when there's conflict,
Sure.
right? And as much as I try to de-escalate things when conflict arises,
Yeah.
I still feel the escalation.
Yeah.
And so I wait to see how the other person is going to bring up the issue. And so yeah, but the way you brought out some of those elements, I feel like there's a lot to take out of there from in terms of principles
Okay.
that we could apply to other difficult conversations that have nothing to do with how I pour my liquid death of my fizzy drinks. Maybe more weightier matters such as, spousal disagreements in the home,
Disagreements with friends,
which
which I would say
is
probably more. I don't know about more common, but I would say more often those ones aren't talked about
why is that?
because I think people have a hard time evaluating whether or not the relationship is at the place that they want to take that risk or not. And then they have a hard time evaluating, can this person hear what it is I have to say? And so more often than not in a friendship type relationship, I would say hard conversations tend to go left unsaid. And so avoidance, I would say, is the main protocol for most people. Just
Yeah.
on a
Yeah, friendships are one of the most interesting relationships out there because they're the one relationships that's purely based on choice compared to others where it's like blood relation, contractual relationships at work because you're being paid. But friendships, it's like, dude, you can just walk out.
Yeah.
Yet, maybe because of that, we fear having those difficult conversations.
I think ultimately we become I think the norm is people become slightly, I'm going to use the word neurotic, but what I mean by that is they think a lot about how what they say is going to be received by this other person or by other people. And so often it's like people are constantly thinking about, well, what are you thinking about? What are they thinking about me? Are they thinking I meant this or that? When in reality, everyone is thinking that. So everybody is actually highly selfish because they're all thinking about themselves.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in a super negative connotation. I do that.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Ooh, and one of the things that you hear often as well is like, I don't want to cause conflict. I don't want to create conflict by having the conversation. But I would suggest that the very fact that a conflict exists, even within you, has an impact on the friendship, whether you like it or not. Right? And I see this play out in my own friendships. I've seen it play out in friendships, like my wife has with other people, is like, oh, even though I'm not having this hard conversation, I can see how our relationship has changed. I don't feel as close to this person anymore because this bothers me, and whether it's the fact that I'm not bringing it up because I don't know if they can receive it or not, our relationship has still been impacted. And so I guess one of the question is how to know when to bring up a difficult topic with your friend or not.
Mm.
Is it worth it?
So I think, I guess inherently, I think of several factors in there, right? So one might be, okay, how long have you been friends with this person? How meaningful is the relationship to you? And once we think about that, like, okay, so let's say, for example, like I would say a measuring stick that I like to use. I honestly, I don't even remember where I first heard this, but it's been one of those things that in my better moments I remember. And that's okay. Does something need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said right now?
Does something need to be said? Does something need to be said by me? And does it need to be said right now? Got you. Okay. So it's like the content, like does the content, there's the person delivering the content, and then the timing, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean full disclosure, like I've said things at some pretty terrible times before, and I would like to think that that helps me get better at more effective delivery because I've not followed.
You've
Oh,
butchered it.
man, full on, or just
Yeah.
completely been
Did
like I would say I, I've just not been respectful of somebody else's emotional capacity. And so in my attempt to have a vulnerable conversation, I just kind of, bleh, yeah, spit it all out there,
yeah.
and it does nothing to help the relationship at all. And I would say where this really matters is in perhaps a relationship or maybe like an interaction with someone that you maybe you're on the fence with, you're not sure if you want to preserve things, but you don't want to hurt things.
Hmm.
And so I think that's where that is especially relevant to think about.
Mm.
However, I would say in most cases, let's say with like really close friends, like friends that hey, have been around 5 years plus, most of the time, I think in my own personal being, like I'm gonna take that risk.
You will take that risk
I will take that
with
risk.
long-term friends.
Yeah, with long term friends,
Yeah.
unless there's something that I feel would actually damage the relationship. And really, the only reason why I would say it is really only to benefit me, like my emotions. It seems clear to me, perhaps, that they're not actually bothered by this and they're okay,
Mm.
right? But if it's only really to serve me and not to serve the relationship, well, then it doesn't really seem to be effective to bring it up.
Mm. Is there an example you can think of in terms of like?
Yeah. So for example, if this is gonna get juicy quick.
I love it.
If so, let's say like
Let me not pour this while you're looking.
my
Don't look. Don't
everyone
look, Dale.
watch.
Don't look.
He's
I'm doing it the way you do it,
he
man.
is. He is. I'm so proud of you. Thank you.
I'm doing it the way you do it. This is how Dale wants it done.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that
yeah.
indulgence. That means so much to me.
Hmm.
So, okay, I remember one scenario in particular. So, my best friend, and if he listens to this episode, then hey, it's okay because we had this conversation like 10 years ago.
Okay.
So, it doesn't matter. At one time, he was dating a girl I didn't like. Admittedly,
Love it. I
I didn't
love it.
I
I
didn't like her.
love it. I love that this is the topic because this is so common.
Yeah.
Friendships and who the other person
Oh,
dates, and
100%.
yeah.
And I'm pretty certain that my wife's friends, like when we first started dating, didn't I mean, I think they liked me, but like it was definitely challenging for a while.
Okay.
Like there was definitely some challenges and some friction there for a while.
Mm.
And now we never talked about it. I never talked about it with her friends and I think this is where this actually gets messy is when sometimes that's attempted to. It can make things really difficult and challenging. But going back, okay, so my friend, he was dating this girl that I really didn't like. And I still remember driving in the car and he's like, "Hey, so what do you think?" And I just stared at him. And,
You're like,
and the funny part too was that like at the time I was dating somebody he didn't like and I knew it.
oh, I
I knew
love
it.
it. I
Like
love it.
I knew that there was an element that he was not really a fan of. And eventually though, like I had to come right out and say, yeah, I don't like her.
Mm,
But what I think was interesting about this was that I think with long-term relationships, the benefit is like he already knew that. He knew what I felt about it. And so we didn't have to go too far into the weeds on the topic because he knew what I felt. And I didn't have to drive the point home too far, right? But I also knew there was already a predetermined line here. Like I knew that I wasn't going to stop being friends with him if he continued dating this girl.
mm,
I wasn't going to ask him to choose between me or them, right?
right.
That's one of the things I
It's
think is
either me
yeah,
or
exactly.
them.
It's one of
What's it
those
gonna be? What's it gonna be,
yeah,
bro?
it's one of those really common petty things. Like if I ask you to choose, inherently I am I'm already showing you how little this relationship means to me.
Mm,
Now, I would say there's exceptions. Like in a marriage, okay, this is different
yeah,
because my obviously my Judeo-Christian perspective is that okay, a marriage has the right to ask to choose.
right. It's preeminent.
Exactly. A relationship of friendship, hey, like I would I would like time with you. I would like you to be fulfilled in what you're doing and I care about what's going to help you. And that ultimately should be my bent. But if I'm not getting the time with you, or if you're with somebody that I just don't approve of, for me to now leave on account of that and like full, and when I say leave, I mean just cut you off, like cold ties. What is it? What is it? People,
Cold turkey?
no,
No.
leave you on red or something,
Ghost.
or ghost. Yeah, that's
Ghost
it.
you?
That's it. That's
Yeah.
the term. Like if I
Yeah.
ghost you,
Yeah.
right, then I think inherently I am acting on emotional impulse there.
mm, mm. Yeah. No, that's good because yeah, when it comes to those conversations, I think one of the things that must be asked is what is your goal? And I think that's what you're pointing at. Like what is your goal here? Is it just to get the point across? Is to show that you're right and they're wrong? Is it to preserve the relationship? Is it to help your friend? And one of the things I love about friendships is that and I think Trevor Noah said this on one of his podcasts about his friends, is he compared it to the Horcrux in Harry Potter.
Mm.
So for those of you not familiar with the story, um, basically it's a man. How do I summarize it in very short words? Um, anyway, you guys can go research it. But ideally, what he was saying is that your friends help remind you of who you are when you forget. And in that same vein, your friends can help you um, be accountable to the things that are important to you, even though there are times when you yourself are not accountable to that. And I think part of having difficult conversations, like maybe in this regard, is like, hey, I realize my friend is choosing a significant other that doesn't seem to align with their values. And so I want to be like, hey, yo, dude, I want to be true to this friendship and call this out because like I understand this is important to you and I care about you, man. I care about you pursuing the things that are important to you. And so my goal here is to bring that to light and to just point out the dissonance here. Like, hey, like it doesn't sound like you're following your values. So help me understand that because I want to make sure that I help you and support you in doing that. So, what is your goal? What is your goal in having this conversation even before you have it? Because sometimes staying true to that goal can determine staying true to a goal that is helpful can determine the outcome of the conversation and also the tone, the delivery, the content of what you say based on your goal. Like if you're just trying to prove that you're right, the way you're going to go about that conversation is going to be super different.
You're gonna butcher it.
Yeah. You're totally going to butcher it. Right. And so, one of the big things with having difficult conversations is realizing that ideally you and this other person are on the same team. And we say this a lot in like couples counseling,
Mm,
right? It's
mm,
not me against you, it's us against the problem.
mm.
It is this problem that is causing a wedge between us, but we're on the same team. Like you're not my enemy, even though at times you might seem like my enemy, and approaching it from that direction. Because if you're on the same team, then in many ways you share the same goals. At least some goals you share. Why would you be on the same team if you don't share any goals? So it's like approaching it from the common ground that you share and understanding that like I want this person to understand that I'm on their side. Even before like even as I'm sharing what I want to share, like do they understand that I'm here for them?
So clarifying intention.
Yeah,
Clarifying intention.
clarifying intention.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, I agree 100%. I think another thing that happens, especially in relationships with friends, is that something, and well, I would say two things perhaps that, like, if it's because it sounds like the thing you're talking about is like, okay, when you see something that a f- a friend is doing that may harm them or isn't good for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're calling attention to their values,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that's, say, case in point number one. And then the other case in point that might happen is, okay, when a friend does something that hurts you, right? This had nothing to do with their values,
No.
right? No, they did something that hurt you. And most often it's emotional, right? If they hurt you
Yeah.
physically, it's like, oh man, it's blatant, it's right there. So you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I hit you in the face. How could I do that? Right?
Right. Make a joke out of it.
Exactly. Or somebody could be like, how could you hit me in the face? I'm so sorry I hit you in the face.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But then when with things that are of an emotional or mental nature, that's way more complex because now there's a
Mhm.
disparity here or a potential for disparity. And
Mm.
I love this quote here by Aldous Huxley. There are things known and there are things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception.
Ooh. 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 Uh-huh.
Right.
Can
Now,
you explain that?
so basically, I see that as two people can see the same thing and look at it completely differently.
Yep. Yep.
Yet there is still truths and there are
Yep.
still untruths.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Now,
there's a story. There's like a metaphor about like the blind man touching the elephant,
yeah.
right? It's like
Yes.
I'm touching the trunk of the elephant, and it's like it's long and circular, or this person is touching the tusks and they're hard.
He's like,
It's like
no, it's
no,
not.
the elephant is hard, and elephant is
Yeah,
firm.
they're asked to describe what it is, and
Yeah,
it's like they've never seen it, and so they're describing it, and they're all describing things that are completely different.
yeah, but they're all talking about the same thing.
And it's still true, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still truly an elephant,
Mm-hmm.
but what they're describing is still different.
Yeah, right. And so both parts can help create the whole if
Exactly.
they're both considered for what they are.
And I think the important part of that, at least what I take away from that is, okay, so let's say conflict then, somebody hurt you, right? Emotionally speaking, right? Can I recognize that one, they could have not had the intention to hurt me, right? it's very possible that they did not mean to do what they did, but I would wager that most often we get hurt when we feel that they meant to do it.
Mm,
Or we're sad that they didn't realize. How could you not have known, right? We feel
yeah.
forgotten about.
How could you have not considered or cared enough
Yes.
to
Yes.
know? So it's like more so negligence, neglect. Is that, would you say that? Like it's not that I intentionally did it like in a vindictive way, but maybe I did it in the like you're not as important
Yeah.
to me.
I didn't care enough.
I didn't feel prioritized.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and okay, so in marriages, obviously that second one can happen a ton,
Uh,
very easily. It's like,
Always perpetual
how could you
problems.
have not known to do like we've
Yeah.
talked about this how many times?
Right.
Right? And so I think where we are able to de-escalate those situations is when we're able to recognize one, okay, yes, I didn't do the thing that perhaps I was asked to, or perhaps I did forget about the thing perhaps that I was asked to remember. As hard as it may seem, I need for you to understand that it wasn't my intention and to believe that. Now, I think this is the hard part in friendships, right? Believing that, right? Especially if something has happened repeatedly. But I think that's oftentimes why people don't bridge those gaps in friendships because if you have to have the same conversation over and over again, it's taxing. And then it becomes this thing. It becomes this thing. It's like, well, we had this conversation before. And now if you do it again, what does that say? Right? It's too much. It's
Mm,
heavy.
mm, yeah. Why do I have to repeat this?
Exactly. So I would say that's in many ways why people don't have many significant conversations, especially with really close friends or friends in general, because it feels too heavy. Now, perhaps other people do. And I would say that's why you see friendships and relationships grow really fast and dissipate really quickly
Mm,
because they're so vulnerable, say so much, and then it's too much.
mm,
And you can't keep that pace up
yeah.
realistically.
Hmm.
And so there needs to be a way to be able to determine, all right, how can I deliver enough here that's pertinent and relevant and is taking interest and care for the other person's emotional well-being. And I'm not only doing this because it's how or because it's going to benefit me. Right? Am I
Mm.
making sense
Yeah.
there?
No,
Yeah.
you're making
Is that okay?
sense. Yeah, and what it's also, I like how you distinguished between intention and impact. Right. So assuming the best intentions from the other person, even though of course it might not feel that way. But I think coming from that place allows them to, you give them space to share their side of the story, right? But still realizing the impact, because those are two different things. Even though they didn't intend to do it, it may still have impacted you in a hurtful way, and it's important to separate the two. Um, and so yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It's good.
Yeah. So I think, okay, so circling back, like if we were to tie this up in a pretty little bow, if I have a friend that did something to hurt me, rather, I would still utilize this framework to say, okay, like, is it necessary for me to say something? Like, am I unable to keep moving along in our friendship without saying anything? Does this thing have to be said by me? Because it's perhaps
Mm-hmm.
possible that somebody else feels the same way, and maybe it's going to come from someone else,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, does it need to be said by me? Am I the best person to deliver this message? And does it need to be said right now? So, I think I would, in my best moments, I would consider those things. And then ideally, right, if I determine, okay, this person hurt me and I care about this relationship, I feel that they didn't intend to, and it's very possible that it could happen again. And they wouldn't actually, and they don't actually want that. And it's a very easy thing to alter. Like it's very accessible. and I am able to intentionally have some peace about it once I say it, right? So understand my own intention. Like, do I need them just to hear me say this, or do I need them to never do it again? Because the second one is very unlikely. People are going to make mistakes. They're going to make the same ones again. People are going to hurt you. They're going to hurt you again. That's what
Including people
happens,
that love you.
including people that love you.
Mhm.
So, am I going to say this for the intention that they're never going to hurt me again? Or am I going to say this because I recognize this as an opportunity for me to be able to wade through what I need to wade through?
Mm.
So,
Okay, because yeah, to that question, some people would say like, then what's the? Some people would say, what's the point in
yeah.
sharing it if they're not gonna maybe change or?
So, I think there's two very significant reasons to share that. One, because the moment that you do, right? This this I would argue serves you. Just like I said earlier, like sometimes we want to say things and we're not actually aware that actually we want to say this so that we can feel better.
Mhm.
And sometimes we don't want to say things even though we may feel better if we do. But I think usually if there's a serious conflict on our hearts, we have the potential to feel much better after displaying that. If we are aware that this is for our benefit, if the receiver can be able to receive that and not completely dismiss it. Again, if this is a relationship worth preserving, I think those are really pivotal things. So, interestingly enough, I remember same friend, right?
Okay,
Same friend
same friend.
had a this was okay, so this was after he was with that girl. We were college roommates. And yeah, I actually remember what happened. So he slapped me. He slapped me. It
Why?
was so fun. I think we were like we were in some sort of catty, funny disagreement or whatever, and he slapped me.
Okay.
And I was like so taken back because everything was funny, and then and like it ate at me so much. And there was particular reasons why it ate at me because there was some history there that we'll get into another episode. But he slapped me, and so I was like, I remember sitting down with him, and I was like, hey, I I'm sure that that's really not what you were intending, but it really bothered me.
I love that intention, impact. I'm
Exactly.
sure that's not what you're intending, but it really bothered me. That's the impact.
And and then I I went a step further in that same conversation because I remember this. We were sitting on beds like facing one another, and I was like, "Look, I also I feel like there's been this undertone going on, and I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I'm not really sure what it is, but I feel like there's been this edginess. And maybe I'm making that up. Maybe that's me. So I leave open the door that I could be wrong. But I'm displaying, okay, hey, this is here. This is what I'm experiencing. And then I went so far as to say like in so many words because I actually don't this last part I don't remember it verbatim, but I believe it was something to the kin of like I I want to be close to you. And like this relationship was really significant because
Mm.
literally this guy's like my brother. Like
Mm.
he's known me since before I was born.
Mm. Wow. Yeah.
And so like very significant relationship. And I was like, so
I want to be close to you,
yeah. And
which
I
is
think
like that
I don't know
goal.
if it was quite that, but it was like
Yeah.
I don't want to have
Yeah.
like
You value
friction here.
you
Yeah.
value this thing,
And
and I'm sure that's his
yeah,
goal,
and so
shared
no,
goal too.
it was like it was received very well, right? Cuz he 100% like was just like, no, he owned his part of things and he was like, yeah, no, there has been some edginess here. and this is where I'm at with this. And then in a quintessential Goodwill Hunting moment, we hugged it out. It was
Wow. Wow.
like so it was it was really funny and emotional
Yeah.
and totally not what you would anticipate seeing in a classical masculine
Yeah.
encounter,
Bro.
right? Like
Bro
but it
encounter.
was a very nice bro hug. So, but it was extremely valuable. And there's been, I would argue, only a few conversations we've had like that to where there's needed to be that touchstone, what I would call. But all of them after that, like, and I can't even remember how many we've ever had after that, but has been much easier to access. I've
Mm.
never had to wonder whether or not he could share something with me if it was bothering him. And I believe the same for him.
Mm. Ooh, like as a precedent, it set a precedent for
Yes.
how to handle and confront some of those issues with each other.
I would say so, yeah. Because you're putting money in a bank.
Mm.
I mean, it's like the same thing like in a marriage. If you go through conflicts and you're able to effectively manage conflict, you feel good about that.
Mhm.
So I think the same thing in friendships and relationships.
Mm. Mm. I love that.
So I feel
Did
like
he
I'm
continue slapping you after that? Did you get slapped again?
only a few times. I'm just kidding. No, actually, I don't, yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
not
certain.
after that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That was great. What I loved about how you confronted your friend in this scenario, again, like stating intention, differentiating intention and impact. You kind of shared your goals, right? Like, yeah, dude, like I'm not trying to have anything between us. Like that's why I'm having this conversation. And I also like that you were specific. Like you talked about the slap.
yeah,
Yeah. But the slap was representative of some wider edginess you said you were
yeah.
feeling.
It was indicative of something else. It wasn't
Yeah.
just about that.
Yeah. Because I think that's important because sometimes what happens is if we're not specific, it becomes too general. And we're operating in generalizations can be very hard to have productive conversation.
It's confusing.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I just feel like there's like some issues. Like, I feel like there's just some edginess between us. Uh, okay, can you give me an example? Nah, I mean, dude, I don't know, man. I just feel like you're always like lately you've just been off, man. Like you've just been giving me this bad vibe. And it's like, okay.
Well, and I think
And yeah.
keep going.
And I think what happens with that is that with a lack of specificity, it's easy to for those generalizations to seem as like you're characterizing the other person, and so there's much more uh they want to defend themselves. Like, what do you mean I'm always? And that's another thing with difficult conversations is using superlatives of like, you always do this, you never do this, I feel like you never call me back, you never respond to me, you always. Please don't use those superlatives because when you use those, it characterizes someone, and it doesn't offer a lot of hope for change. It's more so I'm telling you, this is who you are.
But it doesn't show you how you can resolve it.
Yeah, exactly. So specificity is helpful because it provides something concrete to work with, even though it's like, yeah, like I have been feeling edginess, but here's an example of that edginess. Like this is like, yeah, you slapped me, man. Like what, dude? You know, what? Like so. Um, it helps, yeah, when you're specific. Like, can you name an example? Like this when this happened, this is how I felt, and and this has really put a wedge between us. I would like us to, and that's sharing your goal. I would like us not to feel that way.
Well, and I think what you're bringing up there is the individual delivering, or rather sharing. I think it's essential they have to be willing to be vulnerable about their experience in the relationship,
Mm.
right? So if I'm in a relationship, like a friendship, like I say relationship, but I literally mean like in a friendship, because I constitute anything as a relationship,
Mm.
right? If I'm in a circumstance with someone in which I am experiencing something, I mean, it's my own experience. It's mine, not theirs. My feelings are my own. Now, if I keep getting these feelings and these emotions, I get to decide what I'm going to do with those. I get to decide whether or not I feel they are laying groundwork for me to experience these things. But at the end of the day, it's me experiencing these things. So me sharing is about me being vulnerable, right? Am I able to do that? Am I willing to do that? Am I willing? And I would say this is where we go back to that initial thing you said at the beginning. Am I willing to experience that chest altering tightness and discomfort that we
Oh yeah,
feel when we're
like
like, okay, I'm going to just,
temperature rising.
yeah, I'm going to say this and I'm not sure how they're going to respond to it.
Mm. And that's the whole point of vulnerability. Is that is what vulnerability is that you don't know. If you did know, it would really not be vulnerable. If you knew exactly how they would respond, it would not be vulnerable. Part of vulnerability is the risk that they might not respond to this positively. Mm.
And I would say that's oftentimes we could argue that okay, that's where relationships go to die. It's like I shared this and now they're not responding or talking to me again.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, ugh.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say in moments like that, a lot of times again, content does matter. Delivery does matter. Timing does matter.
100%.
Those things still matter.
Yes.
However, again, I think what matters like on the onset is can I be vulnerable?
Mm-hmm.
Can I share this? Does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said now?
Mm-hmm. And I like what you said as well about sharing from your experience. Um, there's that saying from the good old Rabbi Yeshua or
Okay.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in his famous manifesto speech, Sermon on the Mount, he says, before you pluck out the what is it, the mote out of the eye of your friend, make sure to remove the beam from your eye. And what I kind of gain from that is the idea that our experience is we feel it's filtered, right? It's our interpretation, like you said earlier, might not be the complete or the complete representation of reality. It might be close to that. It might be close to that. But I think that humility of even just how you said it, the way you phrased that speech to your friend, it came from a humble place of like this is my experience. As much as it hurt you, like this is my experience and how I am hurt, and I am giving space for you to share yours. And that can that builds bridges. Um, so yeah, just like understanding how, again, like you're coming to this with preconceptions and things that might not take into consideration the full story of what happened. So it's a conversation at the end of the day. It is a conversation. It's not how to have a difficult uh declaration of your hurts. It's how to have a difficult conversation. So by definition, conversation means there must be room and space made for the other person to give feedback as to what you said. So now, like another part of this that we maybe haven't addressed too much is on the other side of that is receiving, right? Um, 'Cause, it's one thing to share; it's another thing to receive and to respond, right? Because then that's when the dialogue actually starts to happen, right? It's like once we like I shared it, it's out there in the open. Now what? How do we go about this thing now that it's out there?
I think one of the hardest things to do as a receiver is to say these words: "You're right." Because in most cases, if someone is providing feedback, I'm not suggesting those words are always the ones you need to say. I'm saying they're usually the hardest ones to say because those ones typically imply that I've done something wrong. And at the end of the day, I don't have a legitimate excuse for it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and I say this partially because I would say, okay, admittedly, how many times have you been in the therapy room seeing dialogues between couples and one of them is clearly in the wrong, the other has a point to be made, but the problem isn't that the other doesn't know, rather the problem isn't really in what's being said. The problem is the reception.
Mm-hmm.
How many things could have been dissolved if one person had just said, "You're right. I'm
Mm.
sorry."
Mm. Oh, I wish I could hear that more.
Right?
I
Don't we all,
wish.
right?
Yeah.
Like, how often, like, do we not want to just utter those words? You're right.
Mm.
Because
I own
typically,
it.
exactly, own it.
I did it.
I did it. You're right. Now, because most often what happens is that initial, you could say that some of this is biological, especially if we feel threatened, if we don't feel safe, quote unquote, right? If we feel as though something is being impeded upon, right? Then we're more prone to try to argue or justify
Mm-hmm.
behavior
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't deserve justification.
Mm.
So I would argue as a receiver, the hardest skill to learn, and the sooner you can learn it, the better, is how to say, "You're right.
Mm.
I'm sorry."
Mm. So what if the person doesn't think they're right? Like I don't want to be honest and I don't want to be dishonest and say that you're right when I genuinely don't think you're right. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's
So
the thing, right?
I think
That's
that's a
the
great question, and
mhm.
I think that's the second hardest thing to do
Yeah.
because yeah, because you're like, oh man, we are on completely different planets here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think in my experience, and I'm gonna use my wife as an example because there's definitely been conversations to where I'm like, I don't see at all where you're coming from.
Right. Same,
or
same.
or
Mhm.
she's been that one as well. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Then this is where I would say you have to have a high level of relational equity
Mhm.
to be able to disclose those things. If I'm in that position and I don't see like what someone is saying and they're saying something to me here,
Mhm.
then typically I ask for more information.
Mm.
Can you give me more information? Can you describe that to me more? I want to hear what you have to say. Because a lot of times if something's truly accurate, then they're able to at least reflect it in a way that I can understand and I could at least empathize with. But then in other cases, and I can say this for myself, if my wife is like, "Tell me how," because I completely do not see that. When I try to, I realize my own argument falls on its face. Right? I'm like, "Oh wait,
You're like,
uh, but no, yeah, you
sorry.
see, it was just like,
Yeah, yeah, but you
but it's
see,
I did,
they're like,
no,
right.
you're right. I'm wrong. I'm sorry that I'm getting upset."
I know.
Right, and that's where I would say in either case that has to be recognized. And I would say like on this delivery, it's like, okay, we talked initially about understanding that the emotions you have for a conflict or a conversation are your own. And this could be a scenario to where, hey, this is what you're experiencing. And I think this is where it's beneficial as a receiver of these things to ask the question, do you need me to respond to this? Or do you need me to hear you?
Mm,
Are you looking for a response from me?
mm.
Or are you looking for some closure and just to share it? And admittedly, as couples, I think people forget that all the time.
Oh, 100%. Because usually it's immediate response, right? Because you want to defend yourself. You're like, wait, 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 but there is another side to the story that needs to be heard, right? Like we want to jump to that response. And even, dude, even sometimes like the sorry thing, sometimes we jump to sorry too quick. Like this has
Yeah,
happened to me and my wife too, right? It's like,
I'm
okay,
sorry. Wait, now you're
yeah,
dismissing me.
yeah, exactly.
You're just trying to get me to stop
Yeah,
talking.
exactly. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. It's like, oh, but did you see that? Yeah, yeah. I know I did it wrong. I know I did it wrong. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Right? It's like, whoa, whoa. Even the sorry doesn't feel genuine because it's like, but do you understand? Have you heard me, or are you just trying to dismiss and deflect? And so I do think there is an important part of hearing in the sense of taking the time to summarize and to reflect. This is a common skill. That's like therapy 101, right? Is reflecting, mirroring.
So what is that for the, like tell people what that is?
Yeah.
Like
So you basically explain in your own words what you heard the other person say. All right. So
what I
what I
hear
heard.
you saying
Oh,
is
classic. Yeah. What I hear you say is blah, 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 blah. Is that accurate or is that right? And honestly, sometimes it seems weird because it feels like you're being a parrot, and it's a skill that you develop, but it's a magical skill in many ways. Um, just like summarizing what you heard, so the other person knows that you understood them and they feel understood. And like some of the things you said, I was like asking for more information, like inquiring, because it shows a level of curiosity instead of jumping to respond. It's like, oh yeah, dude, help me understand. Like, I really want to know what. Is there anything else? Like, did you? Yeah, because I'm trying to understand this thing before I respond because I have thoughts, but I really want to get your perspective on this.
I think one of the most important skills that most people don't know how to do is knowing how to stop, wait, and listen.
Stop, wait, and listen.
And listen intently. Like actually listen. People know how to stop. People know how to wait, but they don't necessarily know how to listen. Combining all three of those is an invaluable tool for any type of relationship. If I can stop, if I can wait, and I can listen, then I have a recipe for success in
Mm,
nearly any type of conversation
mm,
because I'm displaying the fact that I'm willing to let you speak for however long you need to. And I'm paying close attention to try to better understand what you need me to hear.
mm.
And that communicates something to us.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's powerful, and I think what happens is, in many cases, we try to we compare pain, we compare grievances.
It's a
We
competition.
it's a competition. We weigh them out.
You hurt me. No, you
Yeah,
hurt me
you're like,
worse.
yeah, I know you feel pain, but guess what? I feel pain too. So forget your pain because my pain is just equal. So forget, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, no, that's like the complete opposite way to have yourself be heard is by not listening to the other person. Like, don't you see how this works? Like, you are not going to be heard if you're not hearing the other person. If you want your pain to be seen, you're not going to get it seen by dismissing the other person's pain.
It's interesting because so much of this I feel like goes back to how we raise children.
Oh, tell me more.
Because inherently, and again, I have been a parent, admittedly, for a short time.
Yeah, but it's been
Comparatively,
intense. It's
yeah,
been an intense short time.
comparatively speaking. However, I would say what I have learned is that if I want my children to respond to me in such a way, I have to model that in a very realistic, intentional way for them. For them to be able to understand how to do something, I have to show them how to do it. If I expect respect in how they communicate to me, I need to show them that in how I communicate to them. If I want them to
Mm,
listen to me, I need to hear them and communicate to them that I am hearing you.
mm, modeling.
I'm modeling.
Mm.
Now, there's definitely certain moments to where they're like, "Well, daddy, you did," like,
Right, right,
and it's
right.
like, "Yes, honey, this is true, but that is because I'm your father and you are my child." And this is one area we
Yeah,
don't get to
we
play
don't.
that card on now.
Yeah.
Right. So there's obviously exceptions to rules, but I would say especially when it comes to displaying anger or emotion, right? If I want my children to be able to have a internal locus of control, they have to be able to see how to do that.
Where are they going to learn? It's hard to be what you can't see.
Exactly. They have to be able to see, okay, how do you do this when you're talking to me? How do you communicate to me when you're upset? Right.
Hmm.
And they have to then also be offered options. So, like, for instance, sometimes I think kids just don't know what to say. They get so elevated and they're so frustrated. And
Yeah.
they don't have the words.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the most effective tools for me to say, okay, so what you can say right now is, I'm sorry, but I just need some space. And then you can go and do that. But we don't need to scream right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when I say it's just like raising kids or similar to raising kids, is I think this is relevant because we teach people how to treat us
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes,
in our interactions with them. Inadvertently or intentionally, we
we
teach them
do.
how to treat us.
Yeah.
We show them that. That was my only point.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's the modeling thing is so powerful with kids and hearing them, being able to understand them. I feel like that's good because again, it's so hard for us to do it, so it means we maybe haven't learned it, maybe growing up or something, right? Like, where did we hear that? Like, okay, what I hear you saying is this. Is that accurate? Can I get more information? Do you want to hear me? Do you want to be heard, or do you want me to respond? Right? Like, it's those are that's like very unfamiliar language for many of us, and so it's a skill that needs to be developed. And that's one of the things that one has to note is that conflict it's a skill that's developed. It's not just something you're born with or you have or don't have. It's something that's practiced. Um, yeah. So yeah, listening is the hardest thing, especially when it comes to couples. I'll tell you that. It's so hard. And going back to the comparing trauma thing, comparing pain, it's I kind of think of it, and one of the books I love is Never Split the Difference
Mm,
by Chris Voss. So he's a
great
form
book.
yeah.
Read it if you haven't.
Yeah, please do. It's a super fun read too. Quick,
It is fun.
lots of stories. So he's a former FBI hostage negotiator. And so he has the hard job of negotiating with captors, terrorists in order to save hostages. And one of the things he says is like, I
I-
can't
Sorry,
yeah.
he's good at it too, by the way.
Yeah, he's good at it too. Yeah, and one of the things he says is like, I can't compromise. I can't be like, oh yeah, you give me 2 hostages and keep 5. He's like, no, that is not my mandate. Is to get every single person home safe and alive, right? So I can't compromise on this thing of saving the hostages, but at the same time, how do I convince the captor that they need to listen to me and not I don't need to like fulfill all their requirements? How do I do that? I don't do that by comparing my trauma. Like, hey, do you
You
know
know what?
how much?
Yeah.
Do you know how hard of a job it is for me to? I need to get all these hostages here. You don't understand, Mister Captor. Like, you don't get it. Like, the United States government, blah blah. Nah, like that's not gonna work. So he has to find a way to help the captor see that, like, what you want is important, and I want to help you get what you want, even though of course in this situation like he doesn't want to give them what he wants, but he uses it as an example of like, I need to convince the captor that I'm on his side and that I want to hear him and I want to listen to him in order to get what I want. And he calls it tactical empathy, because in that's a very, he's using it to a certain end. But if we apply that to relationships, you understand that if you really want to be heard, then you need to use the skills that you would want to be reflected onto you, in order to get what you want. But oftentimes in the cycle of conflict, it's always like, who's going to be who's going to be the adult here? Who's going to stop the cycle? Right? It's like, well, no, they're not listening to me. They need to be the one to listen first, and then I'll listen. It's like, no, that's the cycle is just going to keep going on. So who's going to stop the cycle?
If you're gonna keep score, it becomes a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's important to remember too that relationships in many ways
Mm.
have styles about them. Like you could have a
Mm.
relationship in which perhaps you don't have there's certain areas that you don't always communicate on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Perhaps you don't go to these certain places in these relationships. Rather, there's a level of vulnerability that hasn't been
Breached.
breached.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Like I want to be clear to say like this doesn't necessitate us having to spill everything here, right?
Yeah.
I think this is about understanding when, where, and how, and when it's pertinent to. And one of the ways that you can do that is to ask the question, okay, is this benefiting me? Is this benefiting the relationship? And again, going back to those first three things, does this need to be said by me and now? And I think about this in relationship to the Gottmans and how they talk about styles of communicating in marriage, right? Like the predicators for successful marriage weren't determined based on whether or not couples yell at each other, right? That's not one of the factors to determine whether or not couples stay together or not, right? It actually has very little to do with
Mm-hmm.
how they communicate,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
It's the things that are present when they do,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because certain couples, you could see them and they're like, how do you guys exist like this? Like,
Yeah, you're
you
like,
don't speak at all, or you always yell at each other, right? Like, and you could see these in friendships and relationships. Like, you may have
mm.
some friends that like argue like an old married couple all the time, and you're like, you guys actually like each other, or like,
Oh yeah,
like
I can already think of names right now.
exactly,
I'm
right?
like,
But those relationships have come to grow and are understood in those fashions.
mhm.
And so, some relationships you may have that, hey, like, there are certain areas that aren't breached. That's okay. Now, when something new enters that relationship that perhaps does need to be breached, right? I would say this is where these skills and what we're talking about becomes pertinent. And is there enough relational equity in that tank for you to be able to pull from that to alter the style of communication that you're now having in that new
Mm,
place?
mm, mm. Yeah, and going back to the Gottmans and what you were saying is that, those like the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the qualities that they were
Yes, list
referring
them
to.
for us.
Yeah, so basically they say that if these are present in a conflict, it's usually going south. The relationship is,
And these guys are not wrong very often.
yeah, yeah, it's not going in the direction you want it to go. Right. So the first is criticism. So that's like attacking character using superlatives, and a lot of
Always
criticism.
never. Yeah.
Yeah, you always never. A lot of criticism I see is veiled, like, I don't feel heard, I don't feel seen. So you can
Yeah.
phrase it that way.
Yeah.
But instead it comes out as like, you doing this, you dismissed me, you
Yeah.
ignored me, you
Yeah.
betrayed me, you
Yeah.
right? And so that criticism, which the counter of that is defensiveness. A lot of defensiveness. So reversing blame, victimizing, just not taking responsibility. And then there's the big one, and this is actually the one they say is like the number one predictor of divorce. If they see this present, is contempt. So that's like usually comes up as like ridicule, dismissiveness, eye rolling, like scoffing, like that, like really sharp sarcasm.
And like to a high degree, because yes, people
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this.
This is
Like
right.
people do this, and
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
couples use. I use sarcasm with my wife,
yeah.
but like
Same.
we're talking like to a high degree though. Like,
Yeah,
and when the eye rolling is present, it's present with
yeah,
like vindictiveness,
yeah. And contempt,
loathing.
yeah, loathing, like hatefulness. Like this person makes you sick, right? That's contempt. It's like this under individual is like an eyesore in your. They're just a poison to you. That is dangerous. And then the last one is stonewalling. So that's like withdrawal, ignoring, shutting down completely, right? Not withdrawing for a second and then coming back, but complete like silent treatment. So criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. When the four horsemen of the apocalypse are present, relationship is going south. It's going south. I'm sorry. This is what that research shows. Yeah. So
how to not, or rather,
how not to do that?
how
Yeah.
not-
Like
how
on
not-
that note.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I would say if in kind of to wrap a nice little bow on it,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if we want to,
Just do everything else we talked about.
do everything
instead
else.
of that.
Instead of that, check out Never Split the Difference. Maybe some of the Gottman work.
Yeah.
But and then obviously, I think moral of the story is be willing to take a risk, be willing to say the hard thing, and receive the hard thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Another good book is Crucial Conversations. Ooh, that's a good one.
I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. So there's lots out there.
I like it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's a skill worth learning. There's the Gottmans say, conflict is inevitable, but learning how to handle conflict is essential.
That's a great note to end on. All right, done.